Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Jonathan Von Tobel of VSiN will join us. We will discuss a game 7 between the T-Wolves and the Nuggets. Is game 6 just another blow on what has been a ton of blowouts this spring here in the NBA playoffs? So we will have that game 7 to talk about, a couple of game 6s. So excited to talk to JVT, maybe get into some of the NFL schedule. But we'll start here, T-Wolves Nuggets. And I didn't have a great feeling about this game. I thought Denver would probably close them out just because, hey, you won 3 in a row. They figured they figured something out here. But boy, this has just been a strange series. Both series in the West have been strange just because home court has not meant a lot. And now the last 2 games in this series, home teams have dominated. Going into Thursday night, the road teams in the West were 7-3. They won 7 out of 10. And the road team won the first 4 in this Minnesota Denver series. Now the home team has won 2 in a row. So just kind of all over the place. Usually when you head to a 7th game in a series, it's a back and forth series. Hey, team's down 2-1, they respond. Then the team that's down 3-2, they respond. This is a lot of highs and lows. And usually when you head towards 7, not only is the series back and forth, but the games are so close. We really haven't gotten one competitive game. Game 1, Denver was up 4 at the half and ended up losing. That was really the closest game. Game 2, complete blowout. Games 3 and 4 weren't really close. I know game 4 ended in an 8-point margin, but that was never really closer than 10 until really garbage time in the last minute, 30 seconds or so. Game 5 was a blow, and then game 6 is just completely unwatchable. I mean, it's funny. The first score I saw, and they're so bad with these start times. And by the way, the other night starting the game at 10:45. Tonight they're supposed to start the game at 8:30. Look, 8:45. It hasn't started. They finally start the game at 8:50 or so. And the first score I had seen, 9-2 Denver. All right, Denver is going to close this out. They can smell blood. Denver's going to punch their ticket to the next round and wait to see who emerges from OKC Dallas. But then it was a 20-0 run from Minnesota, and the game was never really close. Then it never hit single digits again. Eventually, early fourth quarter, Denver calls off the dogs. They could have done earlier. They gave themselves a chance to make a run, but you never really felt like Denver was getting back into it, and you basically could have turned the game off middle of the second quarter. And it was never a game from there. Just a terrible performance. Jokic wasn't great from 3. Murray didn't do much. And it was just garbage time, really, the entire second half. So we will get a game 7, Minnesota in Denver. Denver's laying 4.5. This game is on Sunday. So look, this is a hell of a game 7. It really is. It'd be strange if Denver lost this series, wouldn't it? After being down 2-0 to rally to be up 3-2, have 2 chances to close it out, and to feel like they regained control of the series. It'd be very strange if they are not able to win this on Sunday and advance to the conference finals. I do think they'll win, but how could you feel good about anything in this series? This series has been all over the place. I do think just because of Jokic and the home court, Minnesota a little inexperienced, I do think Denver figures out a way to win this game, despite how good Minnesota looked in game 6. But again, how could you be? There's so many highs and lows. If Denver has one of these no-shows, I mean, it doesn't matter where the game is. When Minnesota plays like they played in game 6 and game 2, even in game 1, and Denver has these just kind of no-show performances. It doesn't. You can play the game on the moon. It doesn't matter if it's in Denver, where the game is. Minnesota's going to win. But I do think with home court and with Jokic, I do think Denver figures out a way to win the game. So we'll talk to JVT about that. The total 201.5. I think the total for game 6 closed 205. So hey, they're kind of catching on now where they're adjusting game 7s by 4 or 5 points. Where usually game 7 unders are a good trend, but hey, if you adjust the total by 4 or 5 points, that trend's not as profitable. So keep that in mind. I would look towards laying it here, maybe finding the cheapest money line you can on Denver. I do think Denver wins the game. I don't love laying, 4.5 points, but hey, the spread hasn't mattered in any of these games. I figure at some point you're going to get a close game where, hey, it's tied with 2 or 3 minutes to go. As close as these teams are, and hey, it's 3-3. You figure you get one of these, and just as I'm saying that, it goes to 5 here at DraftKings. You figure one of these games will be close at some point, somewhere along the line. So maybe that's the case in game 7 here. The other 2 games I mentioned the other night, I like the Knicks. Knicks are up to +6 against the Pacers. I just think the Knicks, couple things. The days off helped. They were able to catch their breath. End of Sunday, they could rest. Had a couple days off from Sunday afternoon to Tuesday night was a nice little rejuvenation period. And now you get Wednesday night off, Thursday night off, and all of Friday here to recharge the batteries. I think they come out. Tibbs teams have an edge to begin with. They're tough. I think they're going to come out and not be happy to just, hey, go back to the Garden for game 7. I think they're going to come out here to close out the series, rest up a little bit. If they win, I still don't think they play Boston until Tuesday. If Minnesota had lost the series, Knicks Celtics would have started on Sunday, but since that's not the case, I think it starts Tuesday no matter what. So they're going to be extremely motivated. Look, it's the playoffs, this deep in the playoffs. Everyone's going to be motivated, but I do get the sense the Knicks, first of all, I like them +6, and I have a feeling they actually win the game on the court. I just think Indy's not that good. Indy can lose track of guys defensively. They can foul. They can just be sloppy defensively. Knicks are more buttoned up. Knicks have Brunson's the best player on the court. A little rest advantage. I think the Knicks win and finally break through in terms of a road team. I mean, like I said, the home court advantage has not meant much in the other series. Going into Thursday, road teams were 7-3 in the West, and even in the Boston Cleveland series, the road teams were 3-2. This is the one series where our home court is held up throughout. I got a feeling the Knicks break through and punch their ticket to the conference finals. And man, a Knicks team, regardless of what happens going forward, a Knicks team in the conference finals. I don't care how weak the East is, if it is. I don't care what your draw was like. If you can get this Knicks team after what a dumpster fire they've been the last 20 years to the conference finals, and I think they'll get there, whether it's Game 6 on Friday night or Game 7 on the weekend here, I think they will punch their ticket. That would be a hell of an accomplishment. The other series, Dallas laying 4 to OKC. Again, I've had no feel for this series. I thought once Dallas lost Game 4, the way they lost, missing all those free throws, letting the game slip through their fingers, I thought, all right, OKC kind of regain their equilibrium, get their wits about them, and figure out a way to win 2 out of 3 at home. And maybe that'll be the case. Maybe this is another series where the home court just doesn't mean that much. I would pick Dallas here, but man, I haven't had a good feel for this. I mean, this series really should be Dallas. This should be over. It should be Dallas 4-1 right now because OKC won Game 1. Dallas really should have won the 4 games that have been played since. They have 3 wins, and then they let that one game get away. I mean, OKC just has no offense. Other than Alexander, they can't shoot. They look young. Holmgren isn't giving you much. Giddey's a waste of time. There's not a lot of punch here for this OKC team where even though Luke is not 100%, and that's a big reason why I liked OKC plus the home court. Luka, despite the clearly paying through pain, he's going to give you production. He's going to give you points, rebounds. He's going to figure out a way to fill up the stat sheet. Irving hasn't been great, but they've got a better bench than you might think. This Dallas team is tougher. They've got more experience. I figure they would figure out a way to get it done. But again, I haven't had a great feel for this series, so we'd go with OKC -4, Knicks +6. Love laying the 5 here with Denver. I don't know why. I think they win. Just something weird about laying the 5. I do think finally we get a close game here. Again, this almost reminds me of the 2016 finals with Cleveland Golden State, where it went 7, but none of the games were close until 7. And then 7 was a classic where it's tied with 2 minutes to go. So maybe you get a similar type of game. And as I say that, the total where I was like 201.5 is adjusted. It just moved down to 199.5. So somebody's betting the under. You're cutting it close with this total. Because remember, Magic Cavs, all those games were in the 200s. And for Game 7, they moved it to like 194.5. That landed like right on 200. So that tax matters. I would stay away at 199.5. And I would actually look towards taking the 5 with Minnesota. Let's just say Denver wins by, I don't know, 4 points or something. Again, it's hard to feel like you're picking both sides and kind of am when I'm saying, hey, I think Denver's going to win, but I would take the points. But at 5, I don't know that there's a ton of value on Denver, although it's just hard to go against Jokic, hard to go against the home court. I think we get a close game. If I had to bet it, I don't know if I'll actually bet Minnesota +5. If I had to, I'd probably take the points here just because I think we're kind of due for a close game and just been such a strange series. I guess just take the points, but not a ton of conviction. Not a ton of conviction, but that is a hell of a game to watch. There's going to be a lot of drama. Some pressure on Denver after being up 3-2. The way they came back, you kind of feel like, you know what, this is their series to win. If they let this get away, that would be a tough loss with 2 chances to close it out, a 7th game at home. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to talking to JVT about all of these games. That is next. This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. Talk a little NBA. You can catch him on VSiN Primetime. He's been on this podcast before. He joins us again. Jonathan Von Tobel, JVT. What's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
What's going on, dude? What a wild game out in the West. These Timberwolves continue to impress and then also look terrible. So I am very excited for a Game 7. Best words in sports, right?
It's the best. It's one of these weird series. And 2016 finals was like this Warriors Cavs. Everyone kind of remembers it went 7. Everyone remembers Game 7 was great. But it was like 6 blowouts before that, or 6 pretty much non-competitive games. And this is kind of the same thing. Maybe we get a 7th game that's competitive. I kind of think we will, but boy, strange series. Hard to sit here and try to figure out or make sense of what, these games going from one extreme to the next. Have you found that, man, these games are just all over the map and kind of hard to predict?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, you look at like the couple of games or the 3 games that Denver had won, and as somebody who really likes numbers and whatnot, I just kept chalking it up to like, dude, like sometimes champions just come out and show out, right? You look at a team like Denver who is in the 3 games shooting 55% from mid-range, who was dominating defensively, even though they weren't showing that in the first 2 games. sometimes you kind of just buckle down because you know you're a good team that is playing better or should be playing better than it really was. And that kind of explained it, but it didn't really explain everything because we know how dominant this team was. And to make matters even weirder, we all saw game 2 where without Rudy Gobert, they go to Denver and dominate them too. So, yeah, it's been a weird couple of things. I haven't really put my finger on any one thing that has kind of explained what we have seen up to this point, you know?
Game 7, Denver up to 5, open 4.5, quickly got bet to 5. The total, I saw 201.5, which is, hey, it's an adjustment from the 205.5,
Yep.
but it ticked down even further from 201.5 to 199.5. I mean, I know game 7's trend under, but that seems like a huge reaction. What are your initial thoughts here? Anything you're looking for? Anything you would bet at these current numbers?
Yeah, obviously the mark is probably going to move to the under. They like to automatically bet under in these game 7s. We saw, remember, Orlando and Cleveland, that total got down to as low as 194.5 before it got bought back up on that Sunday. So we'll probably see that initial move there. So I'm kind of like wiping my hand. I'm Pontius Pilate. I'm kind of washing my hands of this. I've got a Minnesota future for the Western Conference that I bet a long time ago. When Denver was down 2-0, I bet Circa was off market to win the series. So I put a little on there to kind of get maybe a little something out of the ticket. So I'm going to sit back, but I'll say this. I have believed in Minnesota for 2 years now. Like, I thought they were going to work last year. And then, Jaden McDaniels punched the fire extinguisher and Rudy Gobert punched Kyle Anderson, and it didn't really work out. I think that this team, and it causes, it goes back to the weirdness of the series. I think the team that we've seen in games 1, 2, and now 6, I think that's Minnesota. Like, I think this team has that potential. They just kind of lost it in those 3 straight losses. I think they're capable of coming in here, covering a number like that, and winning this game outright. So I would be in the camp of Minnesota because I kind of just want to stick to my guns here as somebody who's believed in this team for a little bit now,
Yeah, I mean, I got to go with Denver just because they're home and they have Jokic. But if you
Sure.
told me Minnesota won, the series has been too weird. I said, oh, no way that's going to happen. I mean, I'm past the point where anything is no way. Minnesota wins by 30. Denver wins by 30. Either team wins a close game. I have no idea. I mean, this game's just been this series has been all over the map. Where I don't know how you sit there with any confidence and say this is going to happen. And I'm not crazy about laying 5, even though these games haven't been close and the spread hasn't mattered. 5 is still it's not nothing. So with how even these teams seem to be matched, I'm not crazy about laying 5.
No, and Will, the one thing we should, like, you talk about constants in the series and trying to find like some thread of essentially truth. The one thing that should be pointed out, Jamal Murray again today was not good. Jamal Murray was awful. And coming into this game, he was averaging 16 points per game on really inefficient shooting. And, at the start of the series, the question was, hey, how healthy is that calf? They were going after him. He didn't really look great. I think it was game 3 where he erupts for like 24 points to get the win. But that was the only thing he's had in this series, and that's generally the only thing he's had in this postseason. And so to your point about, like, believing anything, if Jamal Murray's not going to show up, and if he's going to show up with this inefficient performance yet again, I believe a team worst minus 32 today for the Denver Nuggets, like, that's a problem. Jokic is awesome, but you've got to have some other outlet offensively. And can you count on Aaron Gordon going, was he 10 of 11 in that game 5, game
Right.
4 or whatever it was? Can that happen? I don't think you can count on that. You need Jamal Murray to show up. And if he's going to be the Jamal Murray we've seen throughout this entire postseason, that's going to be a problem for Denver.
And this quote after the game, somebody asked him about his elbow because I guess the elbow was bothering him, and he said, oh, I got to be ready. It's not like, hey, I'm fine, I'll be good to go. I mean, that's not exactly like an inspiring quote, like, hey, I'm fine. It was, I got to be fine, which I don't love as a quote. I kind of like Brunson's answer where, hey, I'm fine, no excuses. That does kind of leave the door open. So that is a little bit of a concerning answer too. And to your point, 4 of 18 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, 10 points. I know the game's in Denver. I don't care where the game is played. If that's the Murray you're getting here in game 7, that's just not going to be good enough.
No, not at all. I mean, and besides, it's not like he was like comfortable in the games in Denver, right? Game 1, 17 points, 6 of 14. Game 2, 8 points, 3 of 18. Tuesday, right, that we just saw, right? 16 points, 7 of 14. That's fine, but he's only giving you 16 points. It's not like he's been this old Jamal Murray. Playoff Jamal Murray is a thing. He's been great. And by the way, this dates back to the Lakers series. Like, we remember the late shots that he had in those games. I think it was a game 2 and game 3 or whatever it was. The game 5. But overall, in that series too, 23 points, much better, but 40% shooting from the floor, 30% shooting from 3. That's just not going to cut it in a game 7 against a team that has a defender like an Anthony Edwards and or Jaden Daniels or McDaniels, or even a Nickeil Alexander-Walker with his length to really bother him. And you know that those minutes are going to go up. It's a game 7. It's a must win. You're going to the Western Conference Finals. You know that they were going to probably float around 40-ish minutes here for him. That's got to be something where you need, like to your point, it can't be I've got to be ready. It's got to be you better be healthy, because if you're
Right.
not, this team's going to be going after you.
Yep, no doubt about it. And I don't know if we have a start time yet. I would imagine they'd play it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I know it's Sunday. That's the only thing we
Right.
know.
Would you play it at 3:30 Eastern, or would you rather just have it Sunday night at 8 o'clock? But either way, would you jump in
Oh,
anything futures wise here? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Well, I think it should be later, I guess, because 12:30 p.m. already is the potential start time for Pacers Knicks if we get it. So
Oh,
you would
good
assume it's
point.
going to be
That's
late.
Yep,
Yeah.
good point. So that's possible. Would you jump in anything futures wise if you had nothing in pocket? Celtics minus 130 to win it all, Nuggets plus 350, Mavs plus 750, Timberwolves 9-1, OKC 18-1, Knicks 25-1, Pacers 90-1. Usually this
Yeah.
late, you're just going series by series, but is there anything that catches your eye in terms of those numbers?
I mean, I guess it would be Minnesota in that, like, I'm somebody who's believing them, think they can win this game, and if they win this, and if they get into the next round, I think they're going to be favored over Oklahoma City. I'm pretty sure they're going to be favored over Oklahoma City if they move on. It's going to be a little bit more different against Dallas because the market has really it's weird the market's done with Dallas, right? Because the market really liked him in the Clipper series, didn't really like him in the series against OKC, but that would be tight near pick there against Dallas. And then, of course, if you get to the NBA Finals, they're not going to be 9-1 underdogs against Boston. So I think Timberwolves would probably be it if you were attacking anything.
How about these games this weekend? Pacers laying 6 to the Knicks. I think that's too many points. I just have a feeling, even though home court is held up here, I've had a decent feel for this series. I have a feeling the Knicks keep it close, and I actually have a feeling they break through and punch their ticket to the next round. Of course, you couldn't be shocked if the Pacers won this game. They're favored for a reason. But I like the Knicks here. Do you have any strong conviction either way on this game?
We're on the same wavelength there. I think that getting 2 days of rest is huge for this
Yep.
team. Like, thank God for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever that the Pacers couldn't play again until Friday. And it's not even just the 2 days of rest. I was on. It was during the week where we talked about, like, okay, paint the positive picture. What was it going to be for the Knicks? And I was like, well, you're home, you're favored, even though it's a little bit. Home court has meant a lot, and if you can get this win and go up 3-2. You get 2 days off after having extended rest because Thibodeau, in the smart move, waved the white flag pretty early on that Saturday game, right? So you get this rest kind of building up for a team that desperately needs it. You get 2 consecutive days off. And, to your point, like, you go back to game 3, Andrew Nembhard hits that shot. They win that game, obviously. Knicks probably should have won that game. They're up by 9. They lose that gas. Their gas tank runs out. But the adjustment of putting Miles McBride out there, running these guard-to-guard pick and rolls and having Tyrese Halliburton involved defensively almost every single play, being able to go after him, that's an adjustment you can go after again. I think the Knicks are a better team, and I think getting this much rest over the span of the last 4 days is pretty big for them, considering how thin they are. I'm with you. Like, I have a feeling like the market's gone up to 6.5. It's a little too much for me, and I think they can actually close this thing out.
Yeah, and I know injuries are a factor, but like game 1, the series started out. Knicks were laying 5.5. Now,
They close 6?
Yeah, 6. We're talking a 12-point swing. Okay, motivation, home court. I mean, I don't know, 12-point swing. That's a lot. I would only look to the Knicks, and I have some strong conviction on the Knicks. One series, one game. I have no conviction on Mavs Thunder. I liked OKC going in. OKC wins game 1. Doncic doesn't look healthy. I was very confident OKC would win the series at that point. There's been 4 games since. They really should have lost all 4 of them. Even after they come back in game 4, I figured, all right, Dallas, let's it get away. Maybe OKC's back in the series now. I don't know. I haven't liked what I've seen from OKC. I guess Dallas would win a game 6 here, but again, I haven't had a great feel for this series. What are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, I haven't really had a feel either. I bet the Thunder before the series started to win it, and expected that they could potentially, and got off to a good start. And getting that big game 4 win, you think all the momentum's in your favor. You're going back home, but then they turn up a dud offensively, and that's kind of been the problem. Dallas is so impressive on defense, man. They can cut off the rim, they can block shots. They're so big in the paint, and that's such a problem for a team like OKC. And we talked about Jamal Murray not really showing up. Jalen Williams has not shown up for Oklahoma City. Like, he has not been very good. And you're really hoping that guys like Isaiah Joe, who got inserted to the starting lineup, or Cason Wallace, who had a lot more minutes there in game 5. He was up to, I think he was up to like 27, 28. He's a rookie, to show up and kind of give you that other valve on offense. And they just haven't had that. So I've been kind of turned off by the performance for OKC offensively. And I think you can really make the argument, Will, game 4, Dallas probably should have won that. You hit your free throws, and you probably end up winning that game. You're up 3-1. You're going back to OKC. The series could probably be over if you're hitting your free throws potentially. So I'm with you. I haven't had a strong read, but given the way that I've watched OKC, you got away with one in game 4. I feel like you're going into a hornet's nest, and you're probably going to get ousted here against a Dallas team that, remember, does have a lot of guys who have a lot of playoff experience, right? Led by Luka Doncic, who's been to a Western Conference Finals. We know Kyrie's got a ring. A lot of guys who have done a lot of things in this league that are in Dallas right now.
Have you been troubled by the Giddy minutes as much as everyone else?
I have and I haven't. For me, it's more about getting other guys involved. So like for the other day, it didn't hit right, but like I had Case and Wallace like 2+ made threes. I had climbed the ladder a little bit to have some, but I think when you look at like the trouble with Josh Giddey, it's more about not Giddey, but who else could be on the floor. Like Wallace gives you another good perimeter defender. Isaiah Joe gives you some a little bit more switchability, some more shooting. I think that's a little bit more important as opposed to Giddey himself.
Yep, no doubt about it. I expect Dallas to close it out. Again, it's been such a weird series. I mean, even though OKC lost game 3, they were up 10 points in game 3. So again, it's been a weird series. It's just been weird in the West in general. Our home court hasn't meant a lot. Do you assume Boston just rolls whoever comes out of Indiana, New York here?
I kind of feel yes, but like, when you watch them kind of scuffle around with Cleveland for a little bit, right? You watch these first halves where they're kind of back and forth with the team that doesn't have Donovan Mitchell, that's really beat up, that doesn't have Jarrett Allen. I would say like no matter who it is, it should be a short series. But we have a long track record of Boston playing with their food, shooting themselves in the foot, and not doing what you expect them to do. So I would expect another like 5, maybe 6 game series against whoever comes out, but they have the potential to end whatever series they're in this Eastern Conference in 4. So, to like go back to the term we were talking about, would I be surprised if Boston ends up sweeping a New York or an Indiana? No, I don't think so at all. But the track record from the Celtics has been you're not going to play a complete series. You're going to give one away because that's just who they've been. And I feel like you might see that. But I think ultimately it should be short no matter who it is, New York or Indiana.
Maybe if the Knicks got OG back, they could push it to like a 6th or a 7th. Then if you get into a 7th, who knows? Boston hasn't played in these close games, but it's a stretch. Boston would have a lot of length to throw at Brunson. I don't know. I'd love to see this Knicks team at full strength, but that's that's 3 or 4 players ago with Robinson, Bogdanovich. I mean, go down the line, Randall. It's a lot of bodies. At some point, you do run out of bodies here if you're the Knicks.
Yeah, and I'll go back. Remember last year, Atlanta, shockingly enough to everybody, pushed Boston to 4 games. Right. Remember in that first round. So and this is a Knicks team that even is currently constructed, they are so like scrappy that I wouldn't even be surprised if OG comes back that you can push this Boston team who, Cleveland pushed them a little bit, at least from a game-to-game standpoint, without Donovan Mitchell out there. And by the way, given the reports that are coming out of Cleveland before the dirt was fresh in the ground, that team was not really vibing with each other. They were still pushing Boston almost every single one of those games. So you get OG Anunoby back. The Eastern Conference Final starts on Tuesday. So especially, again, going back to the rest point, right? If you can oust Indiana tomorrow and you get Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off to get ready for that Tuesday game, be pretty big for that Knicks team to potentially have OG Anunoby back there for game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, and look, if they do get to the finals, you do have to have some concern. Like, it's got to be a thought in your head, like, man, they've really cruised here. Meanwhile, now you can say they're rested, but meanwhile, the other team kind of battle tested in Boston. I don't know that you could say the same about them. So it's something to handicap or something to keep in mind when the finals do come here in a couple of weeks.
Well, and go back to the last 2. So this is the point to that point. I brought this up a couple of times down on the show on VSiN Primetime. The last 2 postseasons where Boston has failed, right? Where you lose to the Golden State Warriors or you lose the way you do to Miami. The big thing for Boston has been their overwhelmingly negative net rating in clutch time, right? Game within 5 points, 5 or fewer minutes left to go. You have not played really any of those games at all in this run to the finals. And you could potentially avoid a single clutch game in the Eastern Conference Finals, depending on what happens there. So now all of a sudden, let's say, chalk holds and you're looking at an NBA Finals with the Denver Nuggets team who has beat you in the 2 regular season matchups that you played, who's got the best player in the world. You're going to play some clutch games against that team. Are you going to be able to overcome the demons that you've got? Because they have been an issue for you. And very quietly, like Jason Tatum's woken up a little bit, but he hasn't been great. Jrue Holiday has not been good in this postseason at all. And Kristaps Porzingis isn't healthy. So you put all those things together, I don't think it's a given. Like I know a lot in the analytics community and those that shape the market who really base a lot of their stuff on the numbers have kind of this blind faith in Boston. I'm not there yet. Like I get it. I get why you get there, but we've seen this team fail spectacularly with all the same reasons, and we don't have any answers to the questions of whether or not they fix those issues.
What stars, if any, you think change teams this summer? Do you buy this idea that LeBron, hey, he'll go anywhere Bronny goes? He's at the Cavs game. LeBron, anybody else you think changes teams this summer that makes a difference?
So I'll say first for LeBron, and I'll invoke you because you're a father too, right? Will I don't think we'd bug our kids like that, right? Like I don't think you would do that to your kid. I don't think any of us would do that to our kid. Follow him around at the start of his professional career. I think I brought this up with like Ohtani when he was changing teams, where like we kind of focus too much on the sports stuff and don't really realize that these people are humans and there's a lifestyle aspect to it, which is why the Dodgers made so much sense for a guy like Ohtani. And it's the same thing here. I don't think LeBron would do that. I don't think he cares that much. I think it's more of a narrative we created. So I don't think that's a big deal. I think he stays with the Lakers. To me, the big names are Paul George, who I think rightfully should ask the question, do I want to stick around with Kawhi Leonard, who's never healthy and never available whenever we make these championship runs potentially? And Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is a big name that is due $50 million coming up on a player option on an expiring deal. Clearly, Pat Riley is being pretty vocal about wanting to change some things around a team that is, look, outside of a finals run that was very, very unlikely, hasn't really done that much. And you look at it and you realize like the team's not really that great. He could be on his way out. And there's teams like Philadelphia who have all the cap space in the world and some capital to go and get him. I think those are the two names we're watching, Paul George and Jimmy Butler.
I would agree with that. Schedule wise, NFL, last one before you get out of here. Anything that triggered a bet? Any grand takeaways?
I thought so. For me, it was a couple of things. The big one was I've got a couple of scheduling spots circled, and I think I'm glad we got to talk because I know you were big on the Jets last year, but the Jets got a brutal schedule, man. And you go to, I know a lot of people. I've talked to a couple of people that have circled. I think it's week 2 after that Monday night game against San Francisco. I've got the week 3 circled. That's their third game in 10 days to start the season. And it's a divisional game on a Thursday night. It's really tough. All those primetime games at this earliest portion of the season. I kind of, for me, it was Jets under is something I'm kind of really feeling with that team. And that division of like, there's so much parity there that you might just get there because they cannibalize on each other. But the Jets and an under there was the big one for me. I was kind of waiting to see how that would break down. And for me, it triggered a bet. I bet Jets under. I think that this is something worth looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of games compressed here. You mentioned 3 games in 10 days, which is just incredible. And we're going to get more of that here with, these games, Netflix games and all the things down the stretch. But at the 49ers, obviously a brutal game. Can't have much of a tougher game than that. But Titans, Patriots, home for the Broncos, Vikings on a neutral. Then you get the Bills at home, Steelers, Patriots again. I don't know. The teams aren't terrible, but is it more the rest aspect for you and the fact that, hey, you do have to play all these AFC teams?
Yeah, it's the rest aspect. It's the AFC teams. Like in certain squads, I feel like I might be a little bit higher on. Like for example, like that Titans game, I think might be a little bit tougher than most people expect. And again, that's dependent on the development of one Will Levis. But the Titans added a lot, and they're I think they're a pretty competent squad outside of what they lost this offseason. So those little things like that have kind of added up to me. Like, look, 9-8's a pretty respectable season still for a team like New York, and you can still do damage and get into a playoffs like that. But I think given all those aspects together, it was worth it to go under, especially at like a plus price about plus 120.
Any awards, anything like that you betting? Or I've looked, boy, I feel like they've taken the fun out of this stuff with like MVP, Coach of the Year. I saw Aaron for comeback player of the year. I was like, oh, wonder what Rodgers is. Maybe get 3-1, 4-1, 8-1, some even money. It's like, man, I don't know. Have you bet anything or no?
Nah, the one name that I kind of thought of a little bit, there was 2. Nick Chubb around like 25-1 to win comeback player of the year.
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah, right. So, like, obviously, he should be the lead back. He's awesome, which always really helps. So that could be a good one, especially when you don't have like a DeMar Hamlin, right? One with the narrative that's really strong in their favor. I also think, too, by the way, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is doing himself any favors with the voters. So I don't know if that really affects, winning comeback player of the year. With some of the stuff that he's done in the offseason or some of the stances. And the other was, of course, Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold comes out, starts strong, starts a majority of the year, J.J. McCarthy rides the bench, and he's so good that he just kind of staves them off and they make it to the playoffs. Sam Darnold at around 30-1 would be an option to win comeback player of the year.
Yeah, that's certainly not a bad one. I just don't know, like McCarthy, at least the books seem to think McCarthy's going to be playing. McCarthy's got a season player prop, the passing yard. It's like over 3,000. So I guess McCarthy gets it, but if Darnold's the starter, that means he's playing well. And on that team with those receivers, that defense, 30-1, that's not going to be there. So you're almost making a bet on if he starts, because if he does start, man, that's a hell of a number.
By the way, speaking of, I would very much. I think Aiden O'Connell at plus money to start for the Raiders week 1 is something worth looking at too. I think the Raiders want Aiden O'Connell to win that job.
Interesting.
He's the young guy. Obviously, like Gardner Minshew is a known commodity. You paid him money, but you didn't. You paid him backup money. It's not like you put a lot into Gardner Minshew, and he's going to get every opportunity. I don't know if you saw, but Antonio Pierce made headlines, waves out here in Vegas, saying that Aiden O'Connell gets a first snap of practice. You know, when it starts out here. So I think they want Aiden O'Connell to win that job, and he's not terrible. And I think they'd be willing to let him kind of suffer a bit, if you will, because they know Gardner Minshew's got enough cachet. He's come off the bench quite a bit. He'd be used to doing it if it was like week 3, week 4, whenever it would happen.
They have a chance to be really, really bad. The Raiders, if that doesn't go well in that division, that conference, man. If you go to and if you're in that conference without a quarterback, like my goodness, that's tough sledding.
Yeah, it kind of sucks too because I actually kind of like the roster. You know, like the
Not
skill
terrible.
position's good. Yeah, the skill positions are good. The offensive line's average at the very least. Defense is pretty solid with some good pieces. You add a good defensive tackle in the offseason too to pair with Max Crosby. They're a good defensive team. It's just that the most important position might be a nightmare, and it's it's an issue.
And you got the new coach bump because everyone hated McDaniels. Does that new coach bump does that last over the summer? And how is that week 4 when you're 1-3? And does everyone still like the Pierce locker room speeches? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But people also did think that last year, and they did lose 3 straight at one point, I think it was, and he kind of held them together, and then they got a big win over the Chiefs after Aiden O'Connell completed like one pass. So,
all right, JVT, I appreciate it, man. Hopefully, we know we at least get one game 7 this weekend. I think for our rooting interest, we hope we get a one in OKC, and then we hope the Knicks close it out in game 6. But we at least have one. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a second. We'll probably get a second one. Law of averages, I would say we get a second one. So appreciate you coming on. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, VSiN Primetime, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern at me, JVT. And you just go to VSiN.com. A lot of writing up there, baseball, NBA, and more. So you can check that out.
All right, man. Appreciate a few minutes. We'll catch up here down the road.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, that'll do it. Thank you to Jonathan Von Tobel. We will be back Monday, talk more about these games, get into the NFL schedule, talk some baseball, as these playoffs wind down. So see you guys Monday. Rate, review, subscribe. Talk to you then.